I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, typing out my story. My name is Jake, and I'm just a guy who thought he had it all figured out. I married Lisa 3 years ago. She was my high school sweetheart and best friend. We were inseparable, and I truly believed that we were one of those couples that everyone envied. Lately, though, things had started to feel off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but there were signs, little things that made me uneasy. The first red flag was the way Lisa started spending more time at work. At first, I thought she was just putting in extra hours, but then it became an everyday occurrence. I'd come home from work to find her still glued to her computer, even on weekends. She would always say that it was just a busy season, and I wanted to believe her. I tried to reassure myself that her job at the marketing firm was demanding, but deep down, I felt a nagging doubt. Then there was her phone. Lisa always kept it on her like it was a lifeline. I noticed. She became more protective of it, often texting in another room or turning the screen away if I walked by. It was subtle, but I could sense a shift in her behavior. The affectionate gestures we once had seemed to fade, no more spontaneous kisses, no more laughter over dinner. It was as if I was living with a stranger who was just going through the motions. I talked to my buddies about it and they'd brush it off as typical marriage stuff. "She's just busy, man," they'd say. "You know how it is." But I felt like I was losing her and that scared me. I thought maybe I needed to do something special to reignite our connection, so I planned a weekend getaway, just the two of us. I wanted to remind her of what we had, but when I suggested it, Lisa snapped. "I can't, Jake, I have so much work to do." She was irritated and it stung. I tried to put on a brave face, but I felt like I was being shut out. A couple of weeks later, everything changed. I was at home on a Friday night, and Lisa had told me she had a late meeting. I was trying to distract myself by working on a peer support network I was developing for grieving parents. It was an important project, and I poured my heart into it. Suddenly, I received a text from one of the parents I was working with, asking if I could meet later that night to discuss some resources. I knew Lisa wouldn't be home, so I agreed. As I was getting ready to leave, I heard a ping from Lisa's phone. Out of curiosity, I glanced at the screen and saw a message pop up from a contact I didn't recognize. It read, "Can't wait to see you tonight at the usual place. I miss you." My heart sank. I know it was wrong to look, but I couldn't help myself. I opened the messaging app and what I found shattered my world. There were dozens of messages back and forth between my wife and this guy, flirty texts, inside jokes, and references to meeting up. It was clear they had been seeing each other for months. My mind raced and I felt the anger boil inside me. I was blindsided. How could she do this? I was working hard to support her, pouring my heart into my work, and she was betraying me in the worst way possible. I needed a plan. I had to confront her, but I wanted to do it on my terms. I couldn't just let this slide. As soon as Lisa came home that night, I'd been preparing myself for the storm that was about to hit. I would have my answers, and I would finally confront her about the lies. Little did I know, the confrontation would be just the beginning of a long, painful journey. The moment Lisa finally walked through the door that night, I felt like the air in the room had thickened. I was standing in the living room, hands clenched into fists at my sides. She walked in with a smile that quickly faded when she saw the look on my face. "Jake, what's wrong?" she asked, an edge of concern in her voice, but I could tell it was disingenuous. "Sit down, Lisa. We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but low. She raised an eyebrow, clearly not enjoying the tone I was taking. "You have something to explain." I watched as she hesitated, her eyes darting to the side as if searching for an escape route. "What do you mean?" she replied, feigning innocence. It was infuriating, and I had a moment of clarity. I couldn't let her play me like this anymore. I pulled out my phone and handed it to her. "I mean this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. "Who? The usual place, and why do you miss him?" Her expression shifted from confusion to panic in an instant. "Jake, I can explain," she stammered, but I cut her off. I wasn't interested in her excuses. I wanted the truth, and I wanted it now. "Don't give me that, just tell me the truth," I snapped. "Are you cheating on me?" The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. She took a deep breath, and for a moment I thought she might confess. But instead she launched into a defensive tirade, her face flushing with anger. You're being ridiculous, Jake. I work hard and you think you can just accuse me of cheating because you're feeling insecure. It's pathetic. I was stunned. Her ability to turn the blame back on me was unnerving. So you're saying that those texts mean nothing? I asked, feeling the heat rise in my chest. You expect me to believe that? There was a moment of silence and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. She was trying to come up with an explanation, but the lies were piling up. Okay, fine, she finally said, crossing her arms defensively. I've been talking to someone. But it's not what you think. He's just a friend. You know how lonely I've been with all the hours I've been working. You don't understand. Lonely? I scoffed. You think that gives you a free pass to emotionally cheat on your husband? You've clearly crossed a line. She hesitated again, and I could see the guilt creeping into her expression, but she quickly masked it with anger. You want to play the victim, Jake? Well, maybe if you were more present in this marriage, I wouldn't have to talk to anyone else. It felt like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart sank, and this time the anger morphed into a deep sadness. So you're saying I'm the problem? I asked quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes flickered with something resembling regret, but she quickly hardened again. I'm just saying that you've been so focused on your stupid projects that you've ignored me. It's not like you've put in any effort either. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Could this really be how she justified her betrayal? I had dedicated myself to supporting grieving parents, pouring my heart into helping others heal, and I thought Lisa was proud of that. Instead, she was using it against me. Fine, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. If I'm such a terrible husband, just tell me what you want. Are you done with this marriage? Her expression faltered for a second, and I could tell she hadn't expected me to throw that back at her. No. I don't want to throw everything away, but you have to understand that I'm not happy. Then let's fix it, I said, desperation creeping into my voice. But this is not how you fix things, Lisa. You don't cheat on someone you love. She stood there, her defiance wavering, and for a moment I thought I might get through to her. But then she crossed her arms, looked away, and muttered, I don't know what you want me to say. The fight dissolved into a painful silence. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering between despair and anger. I had to admit that the woman I thought I knew was slipping away. The realization stung more than I could express. I took a deep breath, my mind racing with thoughts. How could I move forward from this? I'd spent years building a life with her, but now it felt like everything was crumbling. I needed to make a decision, but I was still processing the emotional fallout of what just happened. The silence stretched painfully long between us. I wanted answers, but all I felt was a growing emptiness. I never imagined I'd find myself defending my commitment to a woman who had so easily discarded hers. I turned away, needing a moment to gather my thoughts. I couldn't believe I was standing in my own living room, feeling like a guest in my own life. After what felt like an eternity, I forced myself to turn back toward her. We need to figure this out, I said, trying to sound more composed than I felt. But I can't do that if you're still hiding things. If you want to salvage this marriage, I need you to be honest with me. Who is he? Lisa hesitated, her eyes darting away. His name is Mark. We met at a networking event for work. It just happened, Jake. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Mark. The name echoed in my head and I could feel my fists clenching. Did you sleep with him? The question was blunt, but I needed to know. She recoiled slightly at the accusation. No, we didn't sleep together. It was just emotional, I swear. I wanted to believe her, but the doubt gnawed at me. Emotional? What does that even mean, Lisa? You can't just string someone along with emotional connections and expect it to mean nothing. Her expression hardened again. You're blowing this out of proportion. I needed someone to talk to. Jake, you were too busy with your projects to notice that I was hurting. Her blaming tone ignited a fresh wave of anger within me. You had every opportunity to talk to me. Instead, you chose to talk to him. You chose to betray me. I watched as her eyes filled with frustration, and I realized that this confrontation was not going to provide any easy resolutions. I'm done playing this game, Lisa. If you're not willing to fight for our marriage, then maybe we should seriously consider what that means for us. Her face fell, and for a brief moment I saw a flicker of vulnerability. But I don't want to lose you, Jake. I love you. Then prove it, cut ties with him, and let's go to couples therapy. I could feel the weight of my words hanging in the air, and I held my breath, hoping she would agree. But instead, she shook her head. I don't know if I can do that. I need time to think. Time. The word echoed through my mind, and I felt a surge of frustration. Time? Time for what? To come to grips with. Your infidelity. You've already taken so much from me. Her face blanched, and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. You don't understand how hard this is for me. I don't think you understand how hard this is for me. I snapped back. You've betrayed my trust. You've made me question everything about our life together. The confrontation spiraled into a messy exchange of accusations and defenses, both of us trying to navigate the wreckage of what we once had. I felt my heart breaking piece by piece, and as much as I wanted to hold on, I could feel the bond between us fraying. Eventually, I stepped back, trying to create some distance. I can't keep going like this, Lisa. I need space to think. I'm not saying it's over, but we can't just pretend everything is fine. Space? What does that mean? She asked, her voice wavering between fear and anger. It means I'm going to stay at my brother's place for a few days, I replied, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness at the thought. I need to clear my head, and I think you do too. Jake, please don't do this, she pleaded, but I could see that her protests were half-hearted. She knew deep down that there was no easy way out of this. I need to figure out if I can forgive you, Lisa, but right now I just can't look at you without feeling the weight of this betrayal. The words hung in the air, and I saw her face crumble. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but part of me was too hardened to comfort her. I had to protect myself first. With that, I grabbed a few essentials and walked out the door, leaving behind the life we had built together. I could hear her calling after me, her voice breaking, but I didn't turn back. I needed this separation, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt like hell. As I drove to my brother's house, I felt the tears threatening to spill. I was angry, heartbroken, and confused. How could someone I loved betray me so deeply? I knew I had to pull myself together and decide what I truly wanted. Did I want to fight for our marriage or start anew? The night stretched on, and as I lay in my brother's guest room, I couldn't help but replay the events over and over in my mind. I felt lost and adrift, unsure of what the future would hold. The life I had known was gone, and I was left standing on the edge, contemplating my next move. The first few days at my brother's house were agonizing. I'd wake up with a pit in my stomach, the reality of what had happened crashing down on me like a wave. My brother, Mike, was supportive but also bewildered. Man, I didn't even know you were having problems, he said during one of our talks. Lisa always seemed perfect. Perfect. The word echoed in my mind, mocking me. I had thought she was perfect too, but it turned out I had been blind to the cracks forming beneath her surface. The betrayal was a bitter pill to swallow, and every time I closed my eyes, I could see the text messages on her phone. The emotional affair that had sprouted behind my back gnawed at me, leaving me feeling hollow. I spent my days in a haze, trying to focus on the peer support project I had poured my heart into. I had dedicated my time to helping grieving parents heal, but now I couldn't help but feel like I was grieving my own relationship. I would sit in Mike's living room, staring at my laptop, but the words wouldn't come. My heart wasn't in it anymore. Hey, let's go grab a beer, Mike suggested on the third day, hopping to distract me from my thoughts. I obliged, needing some semblance of normalcy. The pub was dimly lit, filled with the low hum of music and chatter. As I took a sip of my drink, I felt the tension in my chest loosen just a bit. You know, Jake, it's okay to be angry, Mike said, leaning back in his chair. What Lisa did is messed up. You have a right to feel hurt. I just don't understand how she could do this to me, I admitted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. All the years we've spent together, the love we built, and she just threw it away. People screw up, man. It doesn't mean she doesn't care about you. Maybe she was just lost. Lost? I repeated, shaking my head. That's not an excuse to cheat. She had every opportunity to talk to me, to tell me she was unhappy. Instead, she chose to find comfort in someone else. Maybe she thought you were too focused on your work to notice. You've been really devoted to that project. Maybe she felt alone. His words struck a chord, and I could feel the frustration bubbling inside me again. But I was doing that for both of us. I thought she would be proud of the work I was doing. I wanted to help people, to make a difference. I thought she'd understand. Maybe she didn't see it that way, but you know what? The only thing you can control is how you react. You have to decide what you want to do next. I sat back, contemplating his words. Did I really want to fix this marriage? The thought of going back to Lisa and trying to rebuild after this betrayal felt daunting. Yet, as I looked around the pub, I remembered the laughter we had shared, the dreams we had built together. There had to be something worth saving, didn't there? Later that night, I found myself staring at the ceiling in Mike's guest room, my mind racing. I needed to confront my feelings rather than bottle them up. So I picked up my phone and started to write down everything I felt: the anger, the hurt, the confusion, and yes, the love I still had for Lisa. It felt cathartic, like extracting a painful thorn. But then the reality struck me again. I had to decide. I could either fight for my marriage or walk away and start anew, but I couldn't keep playing the victim. I needed to take control of my life, and that meant making a choice. The next day, I found myself driving back to our house, my heart racing with every mile. I had called Lisa earlier, asking her to meet me there. I could feel the tension building in my chest as I approached the place that had once felt like home. I wasn't sure what to expect. I just knew I needed to talk to her face to face. As I parked in front of the house, I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had no idea what was going to come out of this meeting, but it was time to confront the reality of our marriage. I walked up to the door, knocked, and waited, my heart pounding with anticipation. Lisa opened the door, her expression a mix of surprise and apprehension. "Jake," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked different, more vulnerable than I remembered. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. She nodded and stepped aside, letting me in. The atmosphere was tense. I could feel the weight of our unspoken words hanging between us. We settled into the living room, and I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes. "I've missed you," she said quietly, and I could hear the sincerity in her voice. "I've missed us," I replied, allowing myself a moment of vulnerability. "But we need to talk about what happened, and we need to be honest with each other." She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know I messed up, Jake. I don't want to lose you, but I also know I hurt you deeply. I need to understand why this happened," I said, my voice firm. "What was so wrong that you felt you had to seek comfort with someone else?" And with that, we began to peel back the layers of our relationship, confronting the pain and the truth that lay beneath. It was a long and difficult conversation, but I finally felt like we were beginning to confront the reality of our situation. We had a choice ahead of us, but we had to face the truth first. As Lisa opened up, I listened intently, taking in her words, knowing that this moment would define the course of our futures. The conversation unfolded like a delicate thread, each word pulling at the seams of our relationship. Lisa began by explaining how she had felt increasingly isolated, especially as I became more engrossed in the peer support network I was building. "I felt like I was losing you, Jake," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought if I could just find someone to talk to, maybe it would help fill that void. It was stupid, I know, but I didn't know how to reach out to you anymore." I could see the turmoil in her eyes, and I wrestled with my emotions. Part of me wanted to lash out, to tell her how unfair it was to seek solace in another man instead of coming to me. But another part of me recognized that she was hurting too. "I was trying to do something good for us, Lisa. I thought you'd be proud of the work I was doing, that it would help us as a couple, not push us apart." "I was proud," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I felt so alone. I didn't know how to tell you that. I lost sight of us, and then there was Mark. It felt like I was living in a fog and he was just there. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Her words hung heavy in the air, and I felt the anger and betrayal slowly shift into a deep sadness. "Did you love him?" I asked, dreading the answer. She shook her head vehemently, her eyes wide with emotion. "No, it was never love, it was just comfort. I wasn't looking for a replacement for you. I was looking for someone who would listen, someone who would make me feel less alone." I rubbed my temples, processing her words. "And you thought that would make me feel better about it, that it was okay to have an emotional affair because you felt neglected." "I know it doesn't make sense," she replied, and I could see the guilt etched into her features. "I'm not trying to justify my actions. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'll have to live with that. I just wanted you to understand I was in a dark place." I took a moment to consider her words, weighing them against the pain she had caused. "So what now?" I asked, my voice steady. "What do we do from here? I want to fight for us, Jake. I want to make things right. I know I can't change what happened, but I want to try and rebuild your trust. I'll cut ties with Mark, I promise. I want to make our marriage stronger than it was before." The sincerity in her voice was palpable, but I couldn't ignore the doubts swirling in my mind. "And how do I know you won't slip back into that darkness?" I asked, my heart still racing. "How do I know I can trust you again?" "That's something I'll have to earn," she replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'll go to therapy, I'll be open about my feelings, and I'll make sure you're never left in the dark again." I felt torn. There was a part of me that wanted to believe her, that wanted to hold onto the love we had shared. But another part of me was terrified of being hurt again. "It's going to take time for me to process this," I said, my voice low. "I'm not sure I can just forgive and forget. This wound is too fresh." "I understand," Lisa replied, her expression softening. "I know that I've shattered your trust, and I'll do everything I can to rebuild it. But please, don't give up on us just yet. We've built a life together, and I believe we can find our way back." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing on my chest. "I need to think about it," I said, trying to remain calm despite the turmoil swirling inside me. "I don't want to rush into a decision I might regret later, but I also don't want to throw away everything we've built." Lisa nodded, her expression filled with understanding. "That's fair, I'll give you space. Just know that I'm here, willing to fight for us." As we sat there in silence, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the wreckage. Perhaps we could navigate this painful moment together. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew the road ahead would be rocky, but maybe there was a chance for healing. We talked for a while longer, discussing the steps we could take moving forward, the possibility of therapy, and how to communicate better. It felt like laying the first stones of a fragile bridge we would need to cross together. I still had doubts, but something about her sincerity gave me a glimmer of hope. After a few hours, we hugged tightly, both of us reluctant to let go. I left our house that evening with a heavy heart, but also a newfound resolve. I didn't have all the answers, but I was willing to try. As I drove back to Mike's, I felt the emotional weight of our conversation settling over me, and I was both scared and hopeful for what would come next. I had a long way to go before I could fully forgive her, but maybe, just maybe, there was a path toward healing for both of us. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I wasn't ready to turn away from the love we had built together. It was time to fight for it, even if it meant facing the pain head-on. A new chapter was waiting for us, and I hoped it would lead us to a place of understanding and growth, rather than just more heartache. The following weeks felt like a blur. Lisa and I both knew that rebuilding trust would be a long and arduous journey, but we were both committed to taking the necessary steps. We started attending therapy together, which turned out to be much more beneficial than I had anticipated. Our therapist, Sarah, helped us explore the underlying issues in our relationship, the patterns we had fallen into, and the communication barriers that had developed over time. In those sessions, I found myself confronting emotions I had buried deep inside. I expressed my feelings of betrayal, anger, and hurt, while Lisa opened up about her loneliness and the pressures she felt from work. It was painful to revisit those feelings, but it also felt liberating to finally put everything on the table. In a way, healing became a shared project. We learned to listen to each other without judgment and to communicate openly about our needs. Lisa took significant strides to prove her commitment. She cut all ties with Mark and began attending her own individual therapy sessions. Slowly, I could see her vulnerability transforming into strength. It was as if she was reclaiming herself, brick by brick, and while I admired her determination, it didn't eliminate the scars left on my heart. I found myself wrestling with the question of whether I could truly forgive her. I had moments when I felt like I was making progress, but then there were days when the memories of her betrayal crept back in, and I had to remind myself to breathe through the pain. I often reminded her of this struggle, letting her know that my journey to forgiveness would take time. One night while we were at home, we shared a quiet dinner together. The atmosphere felt lighter than it had in weeks, and I found myself smiling at her more often. After dinner, while we were cleaning up, Lisa turned to me, a soft look in her eyes. I know I hurt you and I can't change that, but I want to be the partner you deserve. I want to prove to you that I can be better. Her sincerity caught me off guard. I appreciate that, Lisa. I really do. But I need you to understand that my path to forgiveness isn't linear. Some days I'll feel okay, and other days I won't. It's exhausting, but I'm willing to work through it as long as you are. I promise I'll be here through all of it, she replied, her voice earnest. As time went on, we began to rediscover the joy in our relationship. We made it a point to spend quality time together, whether it was going for long walks or simply enjoying our favorite TV shows together. We tried new activities, seeking to create new memories that didn't carry the weight of our past. There were still moments when I would catch myself feeling insecure. I'd see her phone buzzing and my heart would race, but then I'd remind myself of the progress we were making. I had to trust her, or at least learn to trust her again. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I glanced over at her and smiled. You know, I think we're actually doing this. We're working through it. She smiled back, her eyes brightening. We are. It's hard, but I believe we're stronger for it. With each passing day, I found myself slowly letting go of the hurt and anger. I realized that love isn't just about perfection. It's about navigating through the storms together. It's about falling down and getting back up, even when the ground feels shaky beneath your feet. Eventually, I began to feel more at peace with our situation. I had no illusions that the road ahead would be easy, but for the first time since discovering Lisa's infidelity, I felt a sense of hope. We were learning to communicate more openly and honestly, and I could see how committed she was to making things work. As summer rolled in, we made plans to take a little weekend getaway to a cabin by the lake. I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, but I knew we needed this time together. It was a chance for us to reconnect without the weight of our everyday lives hanging over us. When we got to the cabin, the beauty surrounding us took my breath away. The lake shimmered under the sun, and I could feel a sense of calm washing over me. We spent the weekend hiking, laughing, and just being together. It felt like a fresh start, and I could see the hope reflected in Lisa's eyes as well. On our last night there, as we sat by the fire, I reached for her hand. I want to thank you for fighting for us. It means the world to me, and I'm willing to keep working through this as long as you are. I'll always fight for us, Jake, she said, her voice steady. I love you, and I'm so sorry for everything. I looked into her eyes and realized that while the shadow of betrayal would always linger, it didn't have to define us. I could see a future ahead filled with possibilities, built on the foundation of trust and understanding we were slowly rebuilding. In that moment, as the fire crackled and the stars twinkled above us, I finally felt a sense of closure. I knew we had a long way to go, but I also knew that as long as we faced it together, we could honor the love we shared and the healing we both needed. I squeezed her hand and smiled, ready to embrace whatever came next.